I love the thrill that comes with buying cheap cars. But when I say cheap, I mean cars that were once really expensive and now are a fraction of the price for some reason. Whether they're super broken, super depreciated, or super totaled, the idea of a half-price supercar only remains half-price before you actually start repairing it. And the thrill I originally felt when I bought the car in front of my computer screen is gone once I fire it up and see that low coolant warning. It's like the old saying goes, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Every cheap car I've bought comes with some sort of compromise, and usually it's a pretty obvious one. So when I learned about manufacturer buybacks, aka lemon cars, it was really exciting. These are cars being sold by reputable dealers with a warranty that have a blemish on their title because they were bought back due to an issue that couldn't be rectified by a service center. While it varies from state to state, the general rule is that if you're a buyer of a new car and you take it in for repair 3 times for the same exact problem, by law, the manufacturer has to buy the car back from you. Once the car is bought back, the issue is documented, then fixed and resold at a discount. In the case of my lemon deal, it was this 2017 Lincoln MKC with only 800 miles on the odometer. It had a $47,000 original sticker price, but I was able to buy it for $23,000. It was literally half price for what was nearly a brand new car, and it had the remaining warranty plus a year on top because of its buyback status. I figured there was no way a car could be deemed a lemon in just 800 miles and thought that maybe the first owners just complained their way out of it. Either way, the dealer has to disclose exactly what the issue was with this car, and in this specific case, it was that the car would stall out to the point where it couldn't be driven. The description was very vague, and I didn't really care since I was saving well over 20 grand to buy a car with very little compromise. Or so I thought. Now fast forward just a few months later, and around 3,000 miles into our ownership, the car broke down in one of the busiest intersections in our city. A nice group of people helped us push it to the closest gas station where the car miraculously fired right back up, and we called Lincoln Service, who picked the car up on a flatbed and brought it to the dealer. All covered for free under its buyback warranty, of course. After a few days of diag, a loose cable was found in one of the major engine wiring harnesses. They tightened the cable up and returned it to me. And within 48 hours of getting the car back, the car broke down in the same exact fashion. Again, the solution this time, they tightened the wire real tight. No joke. That was written up on the service receipt. The car was given back, and I really haven't had any major issues with it. A lot of you have asked about an update on the Lemon Lincoln, and I never found the necessity to make a video because it's been just fine. Well, until now. Now, a couple weeks ago, I'm elbow deep in this Ferrari, and I get a call from my wife where she tells me, Sam, the Lincoln is acting up. And I go, well, what do you mean it's acting up? She goes, well, I was driving it, and it hesitated. I'm going, okay, who cares? Keep driving it, and whatever. She goes, no, a wrench light popped on the dashboard, and then it went away. And seriously, I'm thinking that a few-year-old domestic car doesn't have any issues in comparison to something like this. So I told her it's no big deal. When she gets home, I'll do a code scan, and again, it'll probably amount to nothing. Now later that evening, when I did my diagnostic check, up popped a cylinder 3 misfire. Something I thought was a bit out of sorts for such a young domestic car, but what's the worst case scenario on something like this? Maybe it's a bad ignition coil. I cleared the code, told her, if it comes back, we'll just go buy a $30 ignition coil, throw it in, you'll be on your way, right? Now, a few days later, she calls me and says, the car started really rough this morning, and I saw smoke out of the tailpipe, and I'm going, whatever. Did any codes pop up on the dashboard? She said, no. I said, keep driving. It's really no big deal. When you're working on stuff like this all the time, it's really hard to comprehend the idea that stuff can get really mechanically broken in such a short period of time. Nonetheless, I really didn't think too much about it. A few days went by. One evening, it dawned on me that if there is any warranty left on this Lincoln at all, it's going to expire any day now. So I better just do a quick Google search. I typed in Ford 2.0T misfire, hit search, and up popped up a bunch of forum posts and a technical service bulletin that indicated that this engine could be on the brink of a catastrophic failure, with the only way to fix it being a complete replacement long block from Ford, which is insane. I mean, for the last few years, the car's really been pretty excellent. I've hardly had to put anything into it. Maybe a little bit of air in its tires, which is made really simple because I use my Fanttik X8 Apex tire inflator. All you have to do is twist the hose onto your valve stem, and once it's connected, it'll give you a reading right there. This tire only has 23 PSI. It should have a little bit over 30. We'll hit that button to start. And just like that, once it gets to its set pressure, it shuts itself off. You don't have to sit around and wait. And just like the crazy deal I got on the Lincoln, Fanttik is offering their most popular auto accessories at the lowest price they've ever been during Prime Day. But guess what? You don't even have to wait till then. I've got the exclusive hookup right now. And the T8 Apex jump pack is something I carry with me everywhere. It jumps big displacement V8 engines with ease. In this case, it started my 6.2 liter Super Duty with the battery completely disconnected from the truck. Just as if the truck battery is connected, but all that's there is our jump pack. also a portable power bank that can output power to 2 devices at once. Now to get in on these deals before Prime Day even starts, all you gotta do is hit those links down in the description box. Make sure you apply whatever discount is on Amazon's product page first, and then during checkout, make sure you apply my special coupon codes, which you'll find again down in the description box. These codes stack and will get you the lowest price ever on Fanttik's jump pack and their X8 tire inflator. Seriously, I use these tools on a weekly basis. They're great solutions for common car problems. And with that, I want to give Fanttik a huge thanks for their continued support and for sponsoring this video. Now, when I first found that misfire code, I thought it couldn't be that big of a deal. 30,000 miles, what? Maybe an ignition coil failed. Although, I mean, that still is pretty low mileage to have any sort of hard mechanical part like that fail. But either way, they only cost like 20 or 30 bucks. So it's as simple as popping the hood open, taking off your engine cover here, and probably taking off maybe a few pieces of hose. This intake pipe looks like it's in the way of ignition coil number 3. But before I even got there, I noticed something else when I opened the hood. Do you see this right here? There's no coolant in that reservoir. I mean, you can find a little bit if you go all the way down right there, right to where it runs to the upper radiator hose. There's no coolant in there. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I kind of refrained from messing around with the coil packs until I did a little further research. So I've scheduled for this car to go to the Lincoln Service Center tomorrow. We're still under powertrain warranty for the rest of this year, but the way it works is that when I bring it into the dealership, they're going to create an invoice for a $190 diag fee, and as long as that diagnosis has to do with our powertrain, which is the whole reason we're bringing it in there, then they won't actually charge it to me. It will be covered under warranty. However, there is one little issue with this car that doesn't really have to do with the engine or transmission. Let me show it to you really quick. Everything seems normal for a few seconds, but then it will tell us that we have a few little issues. All right, you see that? Hill start assist, service advanced track, and see the ABS light is on. Basically, it disables a lot of the electronic safety features that have to do with our braking system. Obviously, our braking system doesn't have anything to do with the engine or the transmission, and it wouldn't be covered under that warranty. So to eliminate the possibility that they give us a bill for just a couple $100s to run a diagnostic check on this car, we're going to do our own diagnostic check here with this topped-on diag reader. And if it's what I think it is, it's going to cost, well, way under 200 bucks. So let's just plug this in and run a quick scan. For this car, we're just going to hit diagnosis, and then we could pick our make or model, but if you just hit auto search, it found the VIN number all by itself, and it's going to give us a bunch of different options. Now, I really like this right here, health report, because that'll scan every single system in the car. And this one runs so quick in comparison to some of the older code readers I have. Look, what was that? About 10 seconds, and we have all the systems generated here. So ABS, PCM, and the restraint control module. The system in this car that's generating those faults that we saw on the dash upon startup, I'm pretty sure is in the ABS or the braking system. So we're going to hit enter here, and right here, FL, wheel speed sensor. So FL is front left, and if you think about it, if the car can't figure out how quickly it's moving, well, it's going to shut off some of those things that we saw, like the front sensors, which activate when the car gets to a certain speed. It starts to sense if there's anything in front of it. So anyway, I don't need to complicate things. Wheel speed sensors are super simple to fix. They're usually located in the wheel hub. I'm not sure if that's where it is in this car, but we'll take the front wheel off. We should be able to see it really quick, and I'm pretty sure since this is a Ford product, they'll sell this at the local auto parts store, and we can knock this repair out in probably about 10-15 minutes. You know what's really crazy is just around town on short jaunts, 2-3 miles away, you would never know there's a problem with this thing. But the auto parts store did have a wheel speed sensor right here. This was $25. If you order it online, I look, they're even cheaper. They're like 10 or 12, but we need this for tomorrow. It's this little tiny guy right here, held in with one screw. When we see this guy in our wheel area, we'll know exactly where it's at, and it's a matter of just unplugging and swapping it. Did you know that we got a lift, Sage?
I did know that. We're still jacking out in the front.
Well, it's just one tire, one wheel.
Yeah.
This is seriously like a DIY job, and it'll be really quick just to pull this tire off, find our sensor, and replace it. All right, let's see. And I'm already seeing it. You see right on top of here, this goes right into the hub. Let's see, we just press it, All right, there's our plug. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that this even failed within 30,000 miles, but if this is all it is, it's not bad. It's pretty cheap maintenance to think that we haven't had any real big faults in this car in like 3 years. Sometimes when you're replacing these at like 150,000 miles, they get melted to the actual hub from all the heat. But this one, I'm hoping, comes out pretty simple. Yep, right there. And there we go. Yeah, a little bit of funny business, a little bit of rust, but no big deal. Now, if you work at Ford, I want to know in the comments, how much do you charge to do a wheel speed sensor? I mean, we already know that the Diag fee was what? 190. And then this has got to be what? Half hour of labor? This is why everyone needs some form of diagnostic reader at home and just a basic set of hand tools, because you can save so much money on simple repairs like this. It's amazing. Listen for the snap right there. All right, it's back in. All we got to do is throw the wheel back on, clear the codes, and those warnings should go away. All right, we still have our scanner hooked up, but let's see what happens just when we initially fire the car over. It says vehicle is on. All right, still giving us our trouble codes. Now this is the screen we left off on here with our wheel speed sensor issues. We're gonna go and we're gonna hit clear DTCs. And it's going to ask us if it wants us to clear those. Say yes and okay. Now you can see the car is still running. And if there was a failure, say in the wiring harness instead of the sensor, this code should come back immediately. So we'll go and we'll retrieve the codes again in this system. And you could see it says there are no DTCs. So we'll go right back. All of the lights that were all up here, the ABS lights, all the warning lights have completely gone away. But just to double check, we'll shut the car off. Let's go. We'll hit the engine start one more time. And let's make sure all that stuff actually went away and will stay away. So there you go. A $25 sensor fixed our issue. Now, what I did notice when we did our entire vehicle scan, remember we had a fault code here in the powertrain control module. That's something we want to look at because that would be our engine computer. Oh, look at that. There you go. Misfire detected on startup. It's got a misfire code stored. We don't want to clear these because we want the dealership to see these. This is what we're bringing the car in for, and it has to obviously do with the engine. Wheel speed sensor fixed, code cleared for 25 bucks and what, about 15 minutes worth of work. It just goes to show you how efficient you can get jobs done on these modern cars when you have a really good diagnostic tool. This specific tool that we use today, this top-on, literally costs right around the same exact price as one diagnostic fee at the Ford dealership. It's capable of receiving updates, something the cheaper scanners just generally don't do. This will future-proof this scanner for years to come because, well, you can update it for newer makes and models. If you like live data, it's capable of showing it to you in multiple formats. And get this, it even works on my Ferrari and Lamborghini, which is crazy because it's something that you usually see on the super expensive code readers. So if you're a DIYer and you're looking for a really solid diagnostic tool, but you didn't want to spend a ton, I really think this is the one worth checking out here. It's the top-on RD Diag. And I'm going to drop an Amazon link to it down in the description box. All right, with that out of the way, we've got our technical service bulletin printed out here. This is the same exact thing that our Ford dealer tech should see. And there are literally 6 steps that a Ford tech will take to deem whether this car needs a replacement engine or not. Some of these steps literally take a few seconds. Like the first one, they tell you for the Lincoln MKC in particular, they want to make sure that the engine base part number is number 206. So we're looking for that number right there to be 206, and that's next to the motor mount, which is probably going to be on this side here. There's our sticker that says
206.
There we go. Okay, so we know we can proceed from there. Could you imagine if you had the same issue, but you had like number 690 or something like that? Look, step number 2 is really simple. Does the engine base part number match the requirements in step 1? Yes. Proceed to step 3. With the engine at normal operating temperature, pressurize the cooling system to 20 psi and hold for 5 hours. So I have this toolkit and we use it all the time to vacuum fill engines, but you can rent these really cheaply at the local auto parts store. I think they even rent them for free. And this is really nice because basically we'll hook this pump up to whichever cap fits our overflow tank here. So there's our cap from the kit that fits this reservoir. And it's as simple as just slipping this fitting over and we'll pump. All right, right there, 20 PSI on the nose. All right, this car's got to be in first thing tomorrow morning. So, well, we do have about 5 hours in between then and now. What I want to do is move on to our next step a little prematurely, and that shouldn't matter because it's not anything that's going to introduce any air into our cooling system and nullify our test. Step 4 asks, did coolant system pressure drop more than 4 PSI after 5 hours? And we're going to pretend that it did. We're going to say yes. And then we'll go to step number 5. It tells you to remove the spark plugs using a borescope and inspect and determine if coolant has entered the cylinders. Now remember, the first check engine light I got wasn't just for a random misfire, it was for a specific cylinder 3 misfire. I say we just take out the coil and plug on cylinder number 3, and especially while the car is under pressure, let's see if we can find any coolant in that cylinder. So the front of our engine starts right here where the pulleys are, which makes our cylinder count number 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course we can get to 1, 2, and 4 with a little hassle. 3 is underneath the air intake tubing here. So we're just gonna have to undo a few clips really quick and then take this pipe out of the way so we can get to things without cracking anything. Let's see here. And the time it took just to remove these 2 clamps, look at this. Our gauge is already down a couple PSI at least. We're gonna go and we will inspect that cylinder number 3. And well, if we see coolant in there, we know that's the smoking gun and we don't even really have to wait for this thing. All right. Oh, we're being held on by one little guy here. We're just gonna lay this, we'll just push this in and back. All right, so we got our cylinder 3 right there. That's the one that we're worried about. Let's see, is this an 8? Perfect. Again, this is another testament to why a diagnostic reader just makes your job so much simpler, because if we didn't have that cylinder 3 misfire code, you know, we would probably just start with the first one, go all the way through. Now mind you, if we don't see anything in here, there's a chance that there's a problem in one of the other cylinders, but it's just a time savings thing. It's really convenient, and by the time you pay a dealership for a diagnostic fee and to clear your codes, you're gonna pay for one of these things. We've dropped another couple PSI already. Look at this thing, it's not holding at all. Wow, this is really in here tight, really tight. It's moving a little bit. We're just gonna keep it square and go slow. Okay, I think we did it. Now it's really tough to see things close up here, but our spark plug looked relatively normal. We're suspecting coolant in the cylinder. You might look for a little bit of corrosion around the tip. But, you know, the car, for the most part, runs all right, and so it makes sense that this spark plug looks just fine, but we got to dig a little deeper and actually look in the cylinder to figure out what's going on here. Now, it's only been about 15 minutes later. Look at this. We're already down that 4 PSI that the service bulletin said if you lose 4 PSI in 5 hours, and it only took, what, like, again, 15, 20 minutes. So they're going to go on to the step that we're on now. Wherever that breach is, coolant should be making its way right now through an engine that's not running, so that coolant's not going to just burn up immediately. We might be able to see some actually drip in with our scope camera. All right, we're going from big cam over to scope cam. We're going to run this little probe down into the spark plug hole, and let's see what we find. Now, right off the bat, the most obvious thing is that glittery looking stuff right on top of the piston. That, I can only assume, are the threads from probably the block more so than the actual spark plug. It's very possible that the moisture created a little bit of corrosion, really sticking that spark plug in the threads. And when I say moisture, it's clear. You could see droplets all around the glittery looking stuff. So it's very likely we have coolant intrusion. And can we see where it's actually coming from? What I did is I switched the angle on the scope camera here. And if you look closer up where the head meets the block, look, do you see that? There's actually what looks like a line of water. Here's our smoking gun right here. Now, it looks like it was pretty still, but I kept the recording going in this same position for several minutes, and just look. You could see it actually running into the cylinder. This is just crazy, and it confirms, well, pretty much the worst possible outcome for this engine. So we definitely found our smoking gun. We didn't have to wait anywhere close to 5 hours. It does make sense that they tell you to wait that long, because when you're doing a pressure test, especially after fixing something in your cooling system, you should wait an extended period of time to make sure that whatever you fix is actually holding. But our last step is simply a question. It says, is coolant present in the cylinder? If yes, remove the engine and replace it with a long block, a complete long block. Now, I find it crazy that Ford suggests a complete long block replacement in the service bulletin, yet they don't tell you exactly why the car needs a long block. If you think about Ford's Ecoboost problems, I specifically think of the Focus RS and that 2.3-liter turbo, which I think has very similar architecture to the engine that's in our car, and they actually offer that 2.3-liter in the Lincoln MKC. The problems with that engine had to do more in the top end. They got a lot of cylinder head replacements and head gasket replacements. When you look back at our scope camera, it actually looks like the water is leaking in between where the head meets the block through the gasket itself. And if the gasket were our main cause of issue, you know Ford would not be spending these sort of money to put a complete $9,000 long block in the car. That's what they cost from what I read online. Now, again, reading through some of these forums, people that were out of warranty that dug farther into their engines to figure out exactly what went wrong. I saw one example that had a crack in between the coolant jackets in their block, and it seems that they've revised the way these coolant jackets are shaped to make sure that there's no weak points in the block. Now, I don't know this to be a fact, but if you work for Ford or have experience with this model and their failures, please, I'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comments. I consider myself very lucky in this scenario. I have 5 months left of powertrain coverage and way less than the average amount of miles on this car than most people actually drive. But how about those people that use their cars as a daily driver to only have the problems show up around maybe 80 or 90,000 miles? It's insane to think you spent $50,000 on a car, and well, once that powertrain coverage is gone, this problem is not covered because it's not a recall. It's a technical service bulletin. These service bulletins have really assisted manufacturers in getting out of the huge press headache and the monetary headache it would cost to fix every single one of these engines on the road, and it leaves those drivers that are out of their powertrain coverage in a tight spot. This engine, I think, costs about $9,000 before installation. And then you got to think, what are your other alternatives? Yeah, you could go buy a used one, but you know it's going to have the same exact issue. This problem ran on a lot of 2-liter turbo cars all the way up to 2019. So if you have any Ford or Lincoln product with this engine, make sure you pop your hood and you look at your coolant reservoir. You don't need to go as far as I did, but just make sure you're at the minimum level. Coolant doesn't just disappear somewhere. It's either on the ground or it's inside your engine. And if it's a really slow drip like we experience, you might not even feel any performance difference. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little bit unconventional for me to do long-term vehicle updates, but if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button. Also, if you're not already following me on Instagram, where I give updates to cars like this before anything goes live here on YouTube, make sure, again, you follow me right here. Click that link down in the description. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in today, and I'll catch you very soon.